America is now fighting the war on terror. Not long ago, they were fighting the communists on battlegrounds across America's own backyard in Central America to the jungles of Southeast Asia. Today, the Americans are gone, but they've left their mark. Nicaragua, home of the Sandinista revolution, the only successful revolution in Latin America since Cuba. Today, corruption, poverty and drug trafficking dominate people's lives, and the revolution has almost been forgotten. Our guide is Daniel Alegre, who used to work as a translator and bodyguard for the Sandinista leaders. We're in Bluefields, on the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua. It's a trafficking route for drugs being shipped from South America to the US. Just outside the airport terminal, a group of prisoners were being transferred. A few days before we arrived, 4 policemen had their throats cut in the local police station, where some Colombians were being held. But while the drug traffickers make mostly fleeting appearances, evidence of their presence washes up in Bluefields all the time.
That was just dumped. That came in empty with no crew.
No drugs?
No drugs, no nothing, no crew. Apparently what happened is that out at sea, they got, sequestered by narcos.
So they chucked the drugs overboard and jumped off?
No, apparently the crew was killed just for the passports and ID numbers. It's not...
Oh, drug traffickers took over the boat.
Yeah, exactly. And then they just killed the people for their IDs. And then they just
left the boat.
And the boat came in here on its own. You see, it looks like it was sailing when this happened, because all the sails are still rigged.
So far, nobody has claimed the boat. This could mean that nobody knows the owners are dead.
It says,
it's been stripped out.
It says, don't touch nothing, National Police.
National Police, that's something.
Yes, this has been written inside.
Like that winch that's over there, it's like $5,000, you know? But in its original state, this is a $150,000 boat.
Sometimes locals find abandoned boats that still have sacks of drugs on board. They consider it a lottery win.
No, you find drugs coming
on the sea? They have people that find 50, 60, 70, 80 bags. Like they find a whole bag that containing 50, 60 kilos of coke. And they find them. So what they would do with them now? The government, if you go and deliver to the government, they put you in jail. If you sell it, they put you in jail. So what they rather sell it and see what happens. That's okay, that's all what happened. So who decides?
But the abundance of drugs has meant that while a few might strike it rich, many more end up addicted. Danielle and I met a local music promoter, Keith Brooks, who showed us one of the many areas that has been taken over.
It's not something out of the ordinary here. So it's very common for us to see people just smoking, consuming this garbage.
But sometimes literally a boat with sacks full of cocaine will just turn up on the beach somewhere or down a river somewhere.
Well, it happens all the time.
All the time?
Yeah. But, it's sad when you see fishermen and fisherwomen go out to look for lobster and shrimps and fish, and they find this stack.
This is when boats, like the drug police chase a boat and they just dump the boat with sacks of coke on board.
Yes.
And then local people find it.
Absolutely.
And sell it and
So literally get it free.
This is the crack lane of just this small neighbourhood, not for the whole of Bluefield. Just
No,
one little
no.
neighbourhood.
I would say that every neighborhood in Bluefield
Right.
have a crack lane.
Someone said it's literally the same price as a Coca-Cola
Yes,
for
yes.
one rock.
Yes, and it's used commonly like a Coca-Cola, the same way you would find a young boy or a young girl trying to have their thirst quenched with a Coca-Cola. Well, crack is our first choice here. It seems like you look.
The crackheads didn't like Keith's preaching.
Some kind of rescue, some kind of answer. So,
que páralo yo.
wait, Papa.
Okay? No estoy de acuerdo.
This is my life.
So you can't tell a man what to do in his own life.
No, I'm not telling my answer.
And then what you coming into?
What am I?
A man live his own life.
Keith's band plays regularly in town. Tonight they're playing for the first time since the 4 policemen were murdered. It was an attempt to bolster community spirit. But the crackheads soon took over the dance floor. In addition to drugs and war, Nicaragua has also been hit by countless natural disasters. In 1972, 7 years before the revolution, a huge earthquake all but destroyed Managua.
24th of December, almost at midnight, when people come here to Mass, you know, the Misa del Gallo, it was 6.5 on the Richter scale. It lasted for, I think, 5 minutes, and it killed about 10,000 people.
In 5 minutes?
In 5 minutes.
The then President Somoza sold off international blood donations and pocketed the emergency aid.
The 2 towers here are riddled with bullet holes.
Yeah. Some are from celebrations, but lots are from the fighting.
It was the fighting that made Nicaragua famous around the world. The Sandinistas overthrew President Somoza in 1979, ending 42 years of American-backed dictatorship.
This is what's left of Somoza's house. It was huge. I don't know what happened. And the prisons are over there.
Anastasio was the third of 3 Somozas who ruled Nicaragua exclusively since 1937.
What's this?
It says retirement date 15th of July 79. The reason, you know, he was forced to resign.
When he fled to America, they estimated him to be worth about $900 million.
Yeah, and he left about $6 or $7 in the banks here. You know, he took everything.
That's another gift from Mussolini.
Yeah, Italian. Yeah, Kike. This was where the guard used to sleep.
Sí, esta era la cárcel, esta era su covacha de ella.
This was the barracks.
So this is why it's called the fortress, because literally you've got hundreds of soldiers looking out.
That's right.
He lived
and
on
then
top.
he lived on top.
So literally right next to his house, he had 2 cages.
He had 2 cages. In one, he had a panther, not a tiger, and in the other, he had his pet political prisoner of the month.
So like some people have a table tennis table or a swimming
Right,
pool.
he
and-
has a panther and a pet political prisoner. I mean, it's kind of sick.
Pero mire,
Kind of
si
sick.
ustedes quieren que...
But the pet political prisoner wasn't the only one in the fortress.
But it is an entire prison. And you can actually see the holes where the bars went across the windows and down. But this is 100 metres long, at least 2 floors down. So he's living on top of a huge prison.
Yeah.
So this is part of the horse statue that...
It was the statue of Mussolini that Somoza bought in Italy, or had it sent.
Oh, so he had it planned?
Yeah, and then he cut Mussolini's head off, had his own put on, right? And then he put that plaque saying, "The people of Nicaragua to the General Anastasio Somoza," as if the people did it for him. And then that's the first thing that they tore down in 1979.
So this was 9 years after Mussolini's death. So this wasn't built, especially it wasn't up somewhere. This was just like in a warehouse somewhere. This was
some piece of junk, I guess.
After the earthquake of 1972, Somoza ordered all the roads to be rebuilt using only presidential bricks.
And these are actually the presidential bricks.
Yeah, that's right, the Adoquines. He owned the factory, made the bricks, he had all the roads paved with his bricks.
And he sold them back to the country at a very high price.
Exactly. They were very expensive, but you could only make roads with these bricks. And then the Sandinistas dug them up and made barricades. And they'd seal whole neighborhoods off, and the tanks couldn't get in, and the bullets couldn't go through. Yeah, I used to. Just shoot some play. It weighs quite a bit.
They're quite heavy, but you say you have to do it with an iron bar and dig it out.
When they're like that, take one out with an iron bar, you pry it out like that, and then the rest just come out very easy. You can pick them out with your hand. And in no time, you have the whole road.
Build up.
Yeah, and they make them very high. I mean, they're perfect.
Before their final victory, the Sandinistas launched their most audacious operation, right underneath Somoza's nose in the National Palace. It was led by Idem Pastora.
So we just walked in, and one of the guys standing at the door, as Eden walked in the door, said, "Don't take the palace again." Quite a ladies' man as well. But there is a session going on.
Estaba sesionando, ¿no?
Estaba session. Estaban todos los chanchos, ¿sabes?
All the pigs are in there. And I put my shoulder in and walked in.
Todo mundo, cuerpo a tierra. Puse la culata.
Another table, I put the gun.
¡Bam! El Frente Sandinista de Liberación Nacional, hijo de putas. Aquella mierda parecía brujería. Temblaban todos los escritorios. 11 meses después, Somoza out de Nicaragua.
11 months later, Somoza was out of
Lo
Nicaragua.
habíamos derrotado.
We defeated them.
Somoza fled on the 15th of July 1979, and the Sandinistas took power just 4 days later. They were helped by the fact that American President Jimmy Carter had finally cut off support for Somoza after his soldiers were filmed casually killing an American TV correspondent. But America's involvement was far from over. Ronald Reagan was elected in 1981, and he authorized millions of dollars to be sent to Somoza's old soldiers, who became known as the Contras. Daniel arrived in Nicaragua during the Contra War. He only planned to stay for 2 weeks, but he never left.
Anyway, this is me cleaning my AK-47. Outside the barracks.
But the medals don't mean so much to you.
No, I can't remember what they are.
Right.
You know. Let's see, what's this?
They're giving advice.
Oh, really? Well, I never remember him giving advice. This is my captain's stripe. There you go. And this is my sub-commander's stripe. The others I gave away to a girlfriend. This is some distinction. I honestly can't remember. I don't know. I remember this picture. Eugene Hassenfuss, who was a kicker for the CIA Contra.
They used to kick the supplies out of the back of the planes. They used to fall down for those Contras.
And, well, this picture toured the world. He got shot down with Sam 7.
Because this was proof.
Yeah,
that
this
the Americans
was
were supplying the Contras.
Absolutely.
Really?
Some of the planes that were used to supply the Contras were owned by known drug traffickers.
They took off from Ilopango Air Base in El Salvador, Then they kicked the ammunition out of the plane, landed in a farm of John Hall's in Costa Rica, loaded the plane with coke, flew back to Ilopango, unloaded the drugs, and that went to the States.
Because the CIA was saying, look, let these go through, they're sending supplies to the Contra, so they said on the way back we might as well put coke in there.
That's right. I mean, there's
the plane.
Right, no sense in traveling empty.
Yeah.
Captain of the plane was called Tom Sawyer, funny enough. He parachuted out, was caught, then he was put in jail. I talked to him several times.
How was he treated in prison?
Very well. He had TV and everything. And then months later, years later, he was arrested in Wisconsin for flashing in a parking lot.
But why do you think the Americans cared so much about stopping what you were trying to do here?
Well, because they saw it as a beachhead of, you know, communism, and it was an example of Cold War, another Cuba in their backyard.
But they said that if Nicaragua fell, then maybe Mexico could fall, and maybe after that, Texas, and then...
Yeah, no, they said that we were closer to Brownsville, Texas, than Brownsville was to Washington. You know, Americans are very gullible.
Okay, the decision makers, you don't think that was really what they were worried about?
No, I don't think so. It's also a question of pride, and, you know, they don't want another socialist country in their backyard.
Some of the heroes of the revolution turned against it. Eden Pastora wasn't offered a top job, so he started his own army in the south, backed, like the Contras in the north, with CIA money. Your wife said you don't kiss her like that.
Que cuando vino a la oficina y le dio un beso, su mujer dijo, a mí no me besa así.
Es cierto.
So is this CIA supplied?
Eso le fue dado por la CIA.
No, esto se lo recuperé a un soldado. Al norte le dieron 600 millones de dólares.
In the north they gave him $600 million.
En 4, 5, 6 años. A nosotros en el sur, en 4, 5, 6 años nos dieron 6 millones de dólares.
In the south they gave us $6 million in 4 or 5 years.
¿Se puede hablar de que es una ayuda?
Can you talk about that being
Migas.
aid? It's like crumbs.
Sure,
It's giving us
but if the
our own money.
CIA are giving him, and it was allegedly $150,000 per month, they're not going to let you triumph and then say, do whatever you want. They're going to want a return on their money.
Yo siempre he hecho lo que he querido.
I've always done what I want.
Today, Eden is planning to run for president. The Sandinistas were voted out by a war-weary public in the 1990 elections, and everyone stopped settling their differences with guns. Now they do it through politics.
¿Me puede explicar qué es?
Soy el único político en Nicaragua que puede poner una manta frente a su casa y decir honestidad.
On the way out of Managua, Danielle took us to one of Nicaragua's 17 volcanoes.
But this used to be the principal mirador until that happened. Then it.
This used to be the main car park,
Yeah.
but now it's completely off limits.
Yeah.
So we could just disappear into the volcano.
You sure?
I don't know if I'm okay for falling into volcanoes.
It was here that in 1975, Somoza had 2 Sandinistas dangled from a helicopter and then dropped.
La agitación de la lava, cuando el magma está agitándose, salen las burbujas hacia arriba.
Says at night you can see it sometimes flare up a bit.
You can see it lights up in the dark.
It lights
You
up
see that?
and then it bubbles up too.
So from 1972 you've had earthquakes, volcanoes, Hurricane Mitch,
Tsunamis.
and 15, 20 years of civil war.
Yeah, and also a big tidal wave in '94.
Plague?
Which was not just the politicians.
But as Nicaraguans, they must feel pretty abandoned by God.
Yeah, what is it to
They
say?
think, I mean, they're fairly religious, and yet...
Too close. What is it? Abandoned by God and too close to the U.S.
Is that what they say?
If it's not the revolution, most people would probably think about coffee when you mention Nicaragua. But a world surplus in coffee has led to a dramatic fall in prices, which has been devastating. Some coffee pickers have moved to the side of a main road in protest at what they say is a lack of support from the government during such hard times.
So there are 5,000 people living here, we've been told, from the top of the hill right down over the next hill. Entire families living just under one tarpaulin sheet. They're all labourers from the coffee farms. Since the coffee price has gone down so much, the coffee farmers can't afford to pay them for the whole year. They can just afford to pay them during the harvest, which is a very short period of time, and they can subsist while they're getting that salary. But obviously, for the rest of the year, there's nothing. There's no jobs, and now there's not even any homes for them. Right over the hill,
A baby had been born the night before we arrived, and several children have already died here.
Al casco urbano de la Dalia. Ellos son desempleados también.
All of these families are unemployed. They live in the main city of the municipality of Matagalpa, Department of Matagalpa.
Departamento de Matagalpa, correcto.
Doy café. That's coffee.
Café y frijoles.
And beans.
One woman, who looked much older than her 56 years, told me how hard it was to make a living.
100 pesos, entre dos. Between two, somebody that's good, between two you can make up to 100 cordos, so 50 cordos per person if you're a good coffee.
per day.
Per day.
Which is how much in dollars?
Which is about $3.
We're here because we need land to work on. We work on the farms, but when the harvest is over, we end up on the streets because the owners leave us there.
The protesters soon started a march on the capital. They believe that if they are seen starving to death there, the government will be embarrassed into helping them. At the local hospital, the children of the coffee farmers are turning up in hordes, malnourished and tiny. The hospital can stop most of them from dying, but the kids often return within weeks.
There are roughly 300,000 children in Matagalpa, and a third of them suffer from chronic malnutrition, so that's roughly 100,000 children suffer from chronic malnutrition.
Aquí toda esta área es pediatría.
All this area here is for
Pediatría, este pabellón. Acá.
pediatrics.
Vamos. Vengan aquí. ¿Os quieren conocer los muchachos? ¿Cómo está, amigo? Ve, estos pacientitos, como ustedes pueden ver, ¿ve? Son pacientitos con problemas, delgados. Señora, mire.
19 meses con 6.3 kilogramos.
Tiene el peso de un niño de 5 meses. Y él tiene ya 19.
And he's 19 years old.
Con neumonía.
And he's also got pneumonia.
As a result of malnutrition.
¿Y eso es un resultado de malnutrición o es atribuible?
No, es que el niño tiene
Or as a result of a weakened immune system through malnutrition.
¿Sí? ¿Y usted cuántos años tiene?
19.
19. It's her first kid, and she's 19.
Solo.
Lleve ese niño para él.
Este va para neonato.
¿Por neumonía?
No, no sé.
¿Por qué va? ¿Qué es lo que trae?
Aquí, mire.
¿Por qué lo trajiste, amor?
Está con vómito.
¿Vómito? ¿Diarrea?
No.
No.
Y calentura.
¿Cuánto tiempo tiene?
¿Cuántos días tiene?
24 días.
24
He's
días.
24 days old.
24 days. And where was he actually born?
¿Y a dónde nació?
Aquí.
¿En el hospital?
Sí.
She was born in the hospital.
Vamos aquí pues a la emergencia.
There are some farmers who can sell to the fair trade or organic markets and survive comfortably. But these are still just niche markets, which only help a small minority. When Rosalina first started, everyone thought she was mad.
This is the house where we are now.
We're right here. That's her house and that's the wet mill. See, doesn't consider herself traditional. ¿Qué es la diferencia?
Porque ellos lo tienen como abandonado y no le echan nada. Y yo lo cultivo con abono orgánico.
So her neighbours are traditional. They've got small plots of land like this.
And they don't take care of it.
And she's non-traditional. She's got.
O sea, dice que usted no es tradicional porque tiene mucho más.
And she's just expanding. She's making it even bigger as well.
Fair trade prices are set, regardless of what the market does. And organic coffee always fetches a good price.
Organic beans are good, but organic shade beans are like the very best.
Entonces el café orgánico normal es bueno, pero el café orgánico bajo sombra es el mejor.
Y es mejor.
as the best possible. 1 hour away from here, we saw thousands of coffee farmers who were literally starving and homeless.
Porque son inútiles.
Because they don't know what they're doing. They're good for nothing. ¿Por qué dice eso?
Porque solo se atienden al café. Y yo antes de, cuando no era orgánica, que era el precio bajo, yo hacía otras labores para sobrevivir.
So her husband left her 6 years ago with 6 kids. And since then she started managing the farm by herself, which at first was 8 hectares, right? Now, with what she's gotten from the coffee in the last year, she was able to buy 10 more hectares next door. With the difference in price, she gets her normal coffee and organic coffee, and also she's been able to send her daughters to school.
Is her husband trying to come back now?
Y ahora su marido no la vuelve a buscar, ya que es tan próspera, ¿no? Ah, no quiere volver.
No quiero verlo.
No, she doesn't want to see him.
Que hubiera sido bonito que fueran a ver ahorita cómo está. Y para de aquí unos 2 años vinieran.
It would be good if you could have gone to see what it's like now and come back in 2 years.
Yeah. Maybe if she comes to pick us up from the airport in a limousine.
Sí, se vendría a buscarlos al aeropuerto en su limusina usted.
Coffee is one of the largest industries in the world, and for those high enough up the ladder, it's still highly profitable.
Como $1 million.
In Nicaraguan prices or prices, right?
This is the last touch in quality control, and it's done manually.
And it's done by an all-female team who have proved themselves far superior to their male counterparts.
It seems like they're pulling most of the grains out.
Un desastre el primer día. Les da ganas de beber agua, les da ganas de fumar, les da ganas de platicar.
They want to talk.
So men have a short attention span compared to the women?
Absolutely. Y necesita mucha concentración, uno a uno, grano a grano.
Grain by grain.
It's still a long day. Men would last about 10 minutes.
Los hombres duran 10 minutos. Sí.
Finally, the coffee is graded by expert tasters.
Se evalúan 6 diferentes etapas.
You have 6 choices.
Se evalúa así es, donde un café de exportación tendría que tener una puntuación de 70 arriba. El café de 90 a 100 son cafés excelentes.
Coffees from 90 to 100 are excellent coffee.
Este es un café, tiene 80 puntos. Un café con aroma floral, dulce, achocolatado.
Daniel fancied himself as an expert.
7 y la 8.
The 7 and the 8 are the best cups of coffee on the table.
La taza 8, un café que tiene un aroma a vainilla, limonoso, tiene buen cuerpo y buena acidez, tiene un buen balance.
It's a good balanced coffee.
86 puntos.
86 points.
Hold on, you've got one expert agreeing with you, I've got 2 experts agreeing with me.
No, he's the expert.
Oh, they're just here for fun. But although the coffee being shipped out from here will eventually generate millions in profit for the coffee buyers, most of Nicaragua's farmers will continue to go hungry. The revolution may have succeeded in ousting a brutal dictator and bringing democracy to Nicaragua, but sadly, there is still a great deal that needs to be done. Honduras was an essential ally to America in the 80s, when the US was fighting its war against the spread of communism in Central America. Successive US administrations claimed that if Central America was allowed to fall, Texas would be next.
Honduras shares a border with 3 countries that had large left-wing guerrilla movements, so it soon became home to the largest CIA base outside America. It was from here that they funded and trained the Contras who were attacking Nicaragua. Today it's important as a transit country for drug smugglers, who face much less resistance than the communists.
Well, this is in Alancho province, which is supposed to be the most dangerous area of Honduras. Everyone's supposed to be armed, and apparently justice is interpreted loosely. And we came in knowing the base was protected by Honduran troops and thinking we might have to sneak in and it could be very dangerous. And we actually ended up embarrassing 2 young boys who are the only, two of only 3 soldiers who are controlling the busiest area for narco-trafficking in Honduras, if not Central America.
Professor Juan Almendarez was a liberal who was tortured in the 80s. He showed us around a base where American soldiers lived and worked.
The cement,
Pero sí pasan de noche.
But during the night, there are many planes who go across to here. But because they are here, so they avoid that they can land.
But the soldiers are only here during the day?
And also during night. Yeah.
They are here during the night?
Yeah,
right.
They're watching during the night.
Unless they hear the sound of propellers, in which case they go and have a cup of tea somewhere. But if drug traffickers were landing here, would they not be heavily armed?
Por lo menos tenemos que pedir también un refuerzo de allá.
But so far they haven't actually caught anybody?
No.
Little remains of the base today.
This place was built by the Americans?
Yes, yes.
This was built by the CIA in 1983?
Yes. There are many of these. Some have been destroyed. You see, there's some part.
Yeah. So Nicaragua had fallen to left-wing guerrillas. El Salvador was having a very tough time containing left-wing guerrillas. And in 1983, there was evidence that a small group of left-wing guerrillas were starting to organize here in Honduras. The CIA in 1983 called that the most significant international security threat. And by the end of the year, there were 6,000 US troops on this base. They're running away from the soldier.
The professor was one of many who were tortured for their left-wing beliefs.
Hooks in the ceiling, is that one?
Apparently, probably it was a way to hang the people, to tie or to hang people.
If they were both bolted down with those holes as well as the one on the other end, that would be a perfect thing to put someone's hands through and hang them from the ceiling. Or hang them up against the wall, rather.
In the last few years, the remains of 28 bodies have been found on the grounds of the base.
Many bodies could be buried here.
So far they've dug up 5 different mass graves here on the base?
Yes, it must be more. You can see also there is another...
Evidence of murder and torture was erased from the US Embassy's annual reports to Congress, who could have blocked the flow of military aid. The ambassador at the time was John Negroponte, who is now the ambassador to Iraq. Today, there is evidence that the death squads are back, only now it's a different group of people being killed. We went to meet witnesses of a recent massacre.
So we just walked into Honduras' largest prison, where there's quite a lot of violence. There's the riots here aren't quite the same as back at home. They don't just sit on the roof for 4 hours. The last time there was a riot in a prison in Honduras, there were 78 people killed. And they somehow managed to get their hands on handguns, grenades and even M16s. So I've got my escape route planned. According to their statistics, there are 1,300 that have been sentenced.
Yes.
And just under 2,000 are being processed.
Yeah, almost 3,000.
In total?
In total.
And the ones who are still being processed, how long can they be kept without trial?
There are people 5, 10 years even.
5 or 10 years without trial?
Here, as in El Salvador, deportees from the US and a free market in guns have led to a massive number of gangs.
So this is the section for gang members?
Yes.
There are two main gangs throughout Central America, 18th Street and Mara Salvatrucha, or MS. Both gangs have their own wings in the prison, which they look after and control. They even decide who comes in and out.
They prepare their own food. How many people live here?
Cada 4 o 5 personas.
4 or 5 people.
So he's done 6 weeks of a 30-year sentence?
Yes, yes.
For murder?
Yes, for murder.
There are cement bags stacked up, and apparently it was cement bags that were used to smuggle in M16s and hand grenades and handguns into the other prison where they had a riot.
Se le hacen dibujos.
Se
pinta y se hacen dibujos.
Sí, joyero, sí.
Joyero.
Joyas.
So we've just come from the main prison, which is beyond that huge wall there. We're asked to see some prisoners from the 18th Street gang. They've taken us out the front gates of the prison, right around, and to a completely separate prison, which they haven't even finished building yet.
Los de save es muy importante porque esa es una de las tareas específicas de ellos, ¿verdad?
We have to negotiate access, not with the prison guards, but with the top men from 18th Street inside this section.
Las tomas no, díganle. Sí, eso de las tomas.
Gracias.
So they let us in, but they're a lot more edgy here. The doctor said they've been persecuted. I haven't had a chance to find out what that means yet. But they've shifted us straight into what looks like a cell being built with just 2 small windows, because they said that if we did the interview outside in the courtyard, someone could throw a grenade in from outside.
We met 2 survivors of a recent massacre. They claimed they were locked in their cells, which were then set on fire.
They told us to come out if we wanted to insult them, because they were going to kill us. The first gang member left holding up his hands. When he reached the door, they began to shoot, and we, the other gang members, were locked in cell 2. And as we came out, they started killing us.
65 inmates died, along with 3 visitors. A few weeks after this interview, a fire in another prison killed 103 inmates, and most of them were gang members.
Okay.
But the general public are happy that the streets are being cleaned up, and don't mind reading about gang members dying in suspicious circumstances. But former police officer Maria Luisa Borjas believes that giving the police such a free hand is not so desirable.
He was 16 years old?
16 years old.
So that picture was taken quite a long time before?
Yes, yeah.
So the only photo she has of her son is from when he was 12 years old, which is 4 years before he was
4 years
killed.
before that everybody in here knew that.
Or has anybody provided evidence that he was in a gang?
No, no.
Maria Luisa was one of the highest-ranking female police officers in Honduras.
While you were still in office, you accused the police of killing people and covering up the killing.
The policemen received money for those killings from businessmen and...
Who want protection from the gangs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when the death threat started.
Yes, that's why they suspended me, and after that they fired me.
And after that, they expected you to be quiet?
Yes.
Once you'd lost your job?
Yes.
But she hasn't been quiet. and has started an active campaign to expose these murders, which is when the death threat started. Death threats have even been issued to some of the mothers of the victims.
Esta pared no estaba. This wall was not there. This one. Eso no. So it was just the fence.
Right.
Esto hasta ahora lo arreglaron. They could shot directly to the boys.
So they stood and waited 15 minutes watching the boys playing basketball. Then 4 men with guns walked out and just opened fire.
Yeah, just opened the fire without saying anything. The patrol car was witness of that killing.
Policemen witnessed it, and they let the killers escape. But your son is not a gang member.
Su hijo no era miembro.
No tattoos?
No, pero no. Él no tenía nada. Él más bien trabajaba para darme. Hoy ya no.
Ahora, esta pared.
So even if you accept the police and press line 100% that this was part of a gang war and this was one group of gang members gunning down another group of gang members, there's still 4 young boys. Her son was 16 years old, being gunned down in front of dozens of witnesses. Not one of whom has been asked to give evidence.
The police told us that most of the violence is gang-related, and any bad apples in the force will be investigated and punished.
Qué cosa más rica. Ay, cómo me duele, mi negrita. Ay.